Hi, friends. Susan Blackwell from the Spark File here to let you know that the doors are open for the Spark File Illume, a 9-month group creativity coaching mastermind that invites you to be the Chief Creative Officer and Chief Marketing Officer of your creativity. But what does that mean? That means in 9 months in Illume, you will clarify and advance your big creative goals and learn how to effectively share your work with the world. Now, if you're listening to this and you're an experienced creative or an accomplished professional who seeks a space where it is safe to attempt something you've never tried before, or complete a big creative project, or take your work to the next level and acquire the skills needed to share your creative work with the world, Illume might be right for you. We are calling in emotionally intelligent, high-functioning creatives who are ready to level up. You can find out more by going to thesparkfile.com/Illume, but do it now to find out if Illume is right for you and to save with early bird discounts. That's thesparkfile.com/Illume. Take a leap, take a risk. Go to thesparkfile.com/Illume and join us for Illume.
The Sparkfile podcast may contain profanity and other adult content.
Please use your discretion.
When I bump into something that inspires me, I dump it in my spark file. Could be something that I want to make or how I want to be. I pump it in my spark file. I jump into my spark file. Let's open up the spark file.
Welcome to the Spark File, where we believe that everyone is creative, but smart creative people don't go it alone.
I'm Laura Camion.
And I'm Susan Blackwell, and we are creativity coaches who help people fear less, create more, and bring their creative visions to life.
If you are an OG member of the Sparkfile community, we would like to say, welcome back, Sparkler.
Welcome back. If you're joining us for the first time, welcome for the first time, friend.
Welcome for the first time. Know that just by listening to this podcast, you are joining a warm and wonderful clan of creatives.
But you may be asking yourself, ladies, what exactly is a Spark File?
Well, a Spark File is a place where you consistently collect all of your inspirations and fascinations.
If you're like us and you're making stuff all the time, or you want to be making stuff all the time, you know, if you're not careful, your campfire of creativity can flicker out.
But hey, don't despair. We're collecting kindling in the form of fresh ideas, images, and inspiration that spark creativity and pique curiosity to light a fire under our collective asses to make things like this podcast.
Or a key to unlock your own happiness.
Oh, I'm intrigued. Every episode, we're going to reach into our Spark files and exchange some sparks. And from time to time, we're going to talk to some folks who spark us too.
That means we have more sparks than we can possibly use in this lifetime.
Woo, Lordy, we sure do. So if something lights you up, we encourage you to take that thing and make something out of it.
Without further ado, let's open up
The Spark File.
Hot steamin' sparks.
Hot steaming sparks. Suze, I wanted to tell you something. It's a little mini spark. It's a little follow-up from your amazing spark about Toni Morrison.
Oh, yes. What you got?
Toni Morrison's manuscripts are going to be on exhibit at Princeton this spring. Yeah.
That's
starting in
Jersey.
February. Yeah, that's in Jersey. It's opening February 22nd, which might be right around the time this episode airs.
Oh my God. What? Tell me more.
Well, I'm reading it in the New York Times. I'll send you this article, but it's by Hillary M. Sheets. It's in the New York Times, and it's essentially a campus-wide slate of public events and exhibitions. Uses the 200 linear feet of Morrison's personal papers acquired by Princeton in 2014 from the author as the springboard for new scholarship and cross-disciplinary collaborations. So this project is bringing artists and scholars to Princeton who may not normally have come here and is pushing the thinking about what the archive can inspire.
I am interested.
I am as well. So we should explore this, as should you, listeners.
One of the things I loved about that documentary, that was the foundation of that SPAC that I did on Toni Morrison, I would pause frame in that documentary when they showed pieces of her manuscript, specifically of The Bluest Eye. I would pause it. I think I said this in the podcast, and I loved seeing like, oh, the central character in that had a different name when that was typed, and clearly that was changed.
Interesting.
Things like that. So I can imagine it would be really fun, especially for works that one might have some familiarity with, to go and take it slow and read. What a fun thing if you teach at Princeton. We have a friend who teaches at Princeton, don't we?
Yes, we do.
Brian Herrera?
I think a little visit may be in store, and we'll say,
Brian, can we crash at your place?
And also want to come to this exhibit with us?
Oh.
Yeah. It's funny you just said what you said about seeing those changes, because I was listening to this screenwriting podcast, and boy, I can't remember the name of it right now, and I do apologize for that. I'm going to tell you what it said anyway. They were talking about the writing process, and it's one of the few artistic expressions that you rarely get to see the evolution of something and the process at work. Now, we do in the Spark File, and it is glorious to make that visible. But you really do have to seek this out. What you're talking about is like, so they were saying we always see the end product and so rarely see anything in development as consumers of writing or storytelling. And what you're talking about is doing exactly that, seeking out and having seen the final product, looking now at the work as it progressed and noticing, oh, these changes were made from this version to that version. But it's a lot of work for a person to go and do that.
Yeah.
If you weren't a part of its creation.
Yeah.
It's really interesting.
I really, really enjoy that, which is good because we have a job where we're exposed
it just
to that all
so
the time.
happens we get to do that.
Yes.
I don't know. It's rewarding and interesting to watch something develop and to have such a better understanding that like perfection doesn't really pop out of anybody, even Toni Morrison.
Yeah.
You know, she puts clay on the wheel and then she shapes it into the thing she wants it to be.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, baby.
Yeah, baby.
Anyway, that's a little mini spark. Remember I told you I was collecting mini sparks in a mini spark file?
I was thinking about that this morning. I was like, I wonder if Laura Cammey is going to share any of those little baby sparks.
I got one. Ha ha.
I love it. Would you like a full size spark, an entree size?
I am so ready. I'm ready for a full size spark. Give it to me.
I see you got a big, beautiful cup of coffee over there. I bet that was freshly poured right before we started podcasting.
It was freshly poured into my handmade Polish pottery mug that I do love so much.
Beautiful. When I was at home visiting my sister recently, she had some Polish pottery, and I said, you know who else has some of that? Little baby cams.
Was it shaped like this? Was it coffee mug shaped like this? I love them.
And also plates.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I don't have any of that. Like, it's mostly the mugs for me.
Yeah.
I've got a couple little canisters and really cute shaped canisters that we keep things in the kitchen, but it's mostly the mugs.
I think for her, it's mostly come to think of it, it's mostly the plates. Is this scintillating for you, listeners? You like this?
We'll need to post a photo
Polish
of
Pottery Corner.
Hey, listen, I just might do a spark on Polish pottery. So
do it. We might do a weekly segment. So strap in.
I've got enough mugs for us to do that, just so you know.
That's not what today's spark is about.
It's not.
No.
Tell me what today's spark is about, Suze.
I'm going to do it. So I'll kick it off in this way. Back in January, in the middle of a workday, you and I are working. We're on a Zoom.
Yeah.
It's 3:58 p.m. Eastern time on a Tuesday. We're
Okay.
about to go into our weekly team meeting on Zoom. The meeting is scheduled to start in 2 minutes, and my phone rings. And it's my friend Kyle. Now,
Yeah.
a little backstory on Kyle. Kyle and I worked together for, oh gosh, time is a construct. I'm going to say 5 or 6 years, but Nana Susan is not great at remembering that kind of stuff. But we worked together in very close quarters under a very, very tough boss. This boss was intense in 10 cities, but Kyle and I had each other. And I frequently say that our friendship was forged in the fire of Mount Doom.
Oh, God. That's very visceral.
It was very intense.
Wow.
And we were like, I always thought of we're like little Hansel and Gretel in the dark forest, but we had each other. So for a good healthy part of the time we worked together, our desks were situated so that if you can picture it, it was 2 desks that were they faced each other, and our computer monitors were back to back. So if the computer monitor wasn't there, he and I would be facing each other. And so to see each other, all we had to do was just like rise up over the computer monitor, or just like peek to the right or peek to the left, and you could sort of see your little workmate. But Cami, I'm telling you, and you'll understand this because you and I spend hours together, but the hours Kyle and I have spent together, the laughter we have shared, the tears we have shed, the contracts we have proved, the reports we have drafted, the refrigerators we've defrosted together, the bullshit that we've endured together. I fucking love Kyle and his husband, Ben.
Oh.
I officiated their wedding. I mean, I
my God.
love them. I love them. And I know that I would have loved them had we not worked together, but because we had, like, we walked that rocky road together.
Being in the trenches
arm in arm,
together, it bonds you.
That's right. A wartime analogy is
does.
apt. Yeah. So that's Kyle. So around the holidays that we just experienced at the end of 22 and going into 23, I was thinking about Kyle. Kyle and I don't see each other as much as we once did. Our lives have changed. So Kyle and Ben now have 2 little kids. They both have big jobs in the big city. And you know me, I moved to the side of a mountain. So I'm thinking about them over the holidays and I'm missing them. And I thought about reaching out to them. But if I'm honest, the next thought that I had was, they must be busy. And again, if I'm honest, I also thought they've got big lives. They've got a lot going on. They don't need another person like trying to get their attention.
Tapping at their window.
And if I'm even more honest with myself, this is weird to be this honest on a podcast, but I'll say, I think I had this sort of narrative brewing at the edges of my consciousness about my relevance in their lives, that they sort of have what they need, so they don't necessarily need my mug up in the mix. So I got this call from Kyle a little before
2 minutes
4:00
before our meeting. On
a work day. And we're supposed to start our
meeting. You
were
like, I got to take this.
I had that feeling. Is everyone okay? Because it's, we're all busy working people and it's unusual for that. So I took the call and you started the meeting. And here's what Kyle said when I picked up the phone. He goes, I didn't expect you to answer. I was going to leave you a message. Do you have time for a 7-minute call? And I said, I know what this is. Yes, I have time. So in a moment, I made a very quick decision that I was going to make time for this. So just a really, really quick sidebar. I just want to take a moment to tell you, Laura Camion, how thankful I am and how happy I am that we have created a work situation where I can make a decision to take a call like that when it feels important.
Uh-huh.
This hasn't always been the case.
Uh-huh.
And it certainly wasn't the case in that office where Kyle and I worked, where
my
every
gosh.
conversation that we had was monitored by our boss. So I'm thankful for that. And I want to thank you for that. Thanks for running the beginning of that meeting. But I digress. So Kyle asks if I have time for the 7-minute call, and I say yes. And then Kyle says, Susan Blackwell, you have been heavy on my mind and on my heart for the last couple of weeks. And I don't know if you read that thing in the New York Times. And I was like, yes, baby, yes.
And right back at you.
Yes. He's like, it's like the 7 days of well-being or the 7 days of happiness or something like that. The technical title of it is the 7-Day Happiness Challenge. So anyway, Kyle's like, it's about the importance of connections and friendship and relationships in your life. And I was looking at that. This is Kyle speaking. I'm looking at that each day. And I was thinking about you a lot. And he goes on and he says, it's funny, right now I feel pretty great and fulfilled and happy. And I thought to myself, I have a lot of great relationships and I feel pretty connected with everyone I want to be connected with, save one. And that's you.
Oh my gosh. Only one.
I was like, Kyle, Kyle, like as he was saying it, I was just like, you are a mind reader. I wish I could say that I summoned you. Like,
no, but I think that you both had such a strong connection that both of you were thinking about each other at similar times.
At similar times. Yeah.
Yeah.
So he goes on, he talks about how it came to the first day of the challenge and it was all about making time with people that you love and feel connected to by just committing to a brief phone call. Because so often we have this feeling that there are some people that we feel so close to and so connected to that it's easy to let them slip away because you know that you'll always be connected with that person. And he said, I know that you and I will always have a bond. And so I think you'll be there at any time. But the fact of the matter is, you won't. We won't. And people do slip away from you. And then he said, and I feel like you and I have this very intimate connection, but I haven't felt connected to you in the last couple of years. And I don't want to let our relationship slip away. I would like to feel connected to you. I don't think that has to mean anything in particular. I don't need to make a plan to see you right away necessarily. I don't need to say that I'm going to call you every week or anything like that. But I want to do whatever it takes to make sure that we still feel connected to one another in a way that honors the bond that we have. So this is my 7-minute phone call. Do you want to give me a 2-minute update about you? And I'll give you a 2-minute update about me.
Oh my gosh.
Laura Camion the third. Kyle and I ended up talking for 17 awesome minutes. I was 15 minutes late to our meeting, if you're doing the math. And when I got on the Zoom, you said, is everything okay? And I said, everything is okay. Everyone is okay. That wasn't an emergency, but it was important.
Yes.
And Laura, even just saying it now and recollecting it and recounting it to you, I just have chills. It felt so wonderful. It felt like something profound had happened. I cannot tell you how much that call that Kyle placed to me, I cannot tell you how much it meant.
Oh, I believe it. I believe it. And I remember talking about it and thinking, yeah, that's how it's done. And I wanted to go back and read that New York Times article, which I have not done. I'm guilty of that, but I remember thinking about it.
Let me serve you up the book report.
Oh, please do. Please do. And I want to say also thank you, Kyle, because like that is really showing us all how it can be done.
That is how it's done.
Yeah.
And we'll get to it in a little bit, but I think that requires a certain measure of vulnerability to do what Kyle did.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Talk more about that in a second.
Yeah. Okay.
The reason why I had that aha of recognition that I could go like, Kyle, I do know what you're doing and keep doing it, is because I had bumped into the series that Kyle was referring to. Beginning on New Year's Day, 2023, the New York Times ran a 7-day happiness challenge. And it was a series of articles and suggestions, challenges, if you will,
Mhm.
for strengthening the social ties in your life that are a predictor for happiness.
Wow.
And Kyle was referring specifically to one of the entries in that series.
So was it like one thing every day, or was like a few
Yeah.
different?
It
Oh,
was like
that's great.
1 to 3 things every day that you could try. Like you just said, Laura, I had been interested in that series, but I'm interested in a lot of things. And it kind of got away from me in the way that it probably kind of got away from you.
Mhm.
But that call from Kyle and the impact that it had on just like this flush of like connectedness and well being and like across the miles, just like the oxytocin and
Oh,
oh, the gratitude I have to Kyle for reaching out and just strengthening that connection. I was like, this is the shit. So it renewed my interest. I went back. I decided to give it a spin, which brings me to my spark today. Thank you, Kyle Altoff. It's the New York Times 7-Day Happiness Challenge.
oh, thank you, Kyle.
Thank you,
Suze.
Kyle.
I'm excited for this.
Yeah. So this series was produced by Deanna Donegan, Hang Do Tai Duck, and Umi Siam. And it kicks off with an article written by Jancy Dunn. In fact, it seems like this entire series was written by Jancy Dunn in collaboration with Dr. Bob Waldinger. Dr. Bob Waldinger, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, is a professor of psychiatry at Harvard Medical School and the author of the book, The Good Life: Lessons from the World's Longest Scientific Study of Happiness. And I'm going to kick off this spark by reading a passage straight from this article. I want to thank Jancy Dunn for this writing. I want to thank Dr. Bob Waldinger for your life's work.
Yep.
But here's Jancy's words. In 1938, researchers at Harvard set out to learn what makes a person thrive. They recruited 724 participants, a combination of students at Harvard College and low income teenage boys in Boston. All were willing to let the researchers track their lives from childhood troubles to first loves to final days. Every 5 years, the researchers gathered health records from the participants. They asked detailed questions about their lives at 2-year intervals and, in later years, took DNA samples and performed brain scans. 25 of the participants even donated their brains to the study after their deaths.
Wow.
Yeah. Now, 85 years later, the Harvard study of adult development has expanded to 3 generations and more than 1,300 descendants of the original subjects. It is, according to researchers, the longest running in-depth study on human happiness in the world.
Now, Suze, I'm going to stop you for a second because I think I saw a little bit. Is this the one where, like, of course, they started with all men and boys, and then about 70 years into it, that can't be right, but many years into it, they were like, oh, let's add their wives. So there were women included at that point too, correct?
This is an annex of the Spark that I was so focused on the challenge
Got it.
that this is an annex of the Spark that I'm not sure about, but I'm interested in that. And I bet if I had clicked through a bunch of the links,
Yeah.
that I would have learned that.
Yeah, I think so
Yeah.
because I think I saw that like on social media. And now that I think about it, they were probably promoting this series. Like had I gone through there. Yeah.
And ultimately, I'm guessing they're promoting his book, but also the altruist in me wants to believe they're promoting happiness.
Happiness. Of
For
course.
people. Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
And I love what you said, just so I'm clear, like, and now by following the descendants of some of these people, we're talking intergenerational
That's right.
as well. Okay.
That's right.
This is fascinating.
Isn't it amazing?
It
It
is.
blows my mind. I feel like this 7-day happiness challenge just like rests on the shoulders of literally decades of research. And
Yeah.
I love this use of research and science to make average schmoes like me make our lives better on a day-to-day basis. I really appreciate the work that these people did.
Listen, if we can learn from it.
Yeah. And all the subjects that participated in this, I'm thankful to them as well.
Absolutely.
Thanks for
Yeah.
donating your brains. So From all the data, one very clear finding emerged. I'm going to say this, and I want y'all to hear it. Strong relationships are what make for a happy life. More than wealth, IQ, or social class, it's the robustness of our bonds that most determines whether we feel fulfilled. Again, those words were written by Jancy Dunn in the New York Times, and I think this is worth pausing to take in. Strong relationships are what make for a happy life.
Wow.
So many people are looking for happiness or looking for the secret to happiness, and it's right there in the New York Times. Strong relationships are what make for a happy life, substantiated by research.
We were just talking about, boy, if you listened to last week's episode,
Yep.
Susan and I continued our conversation afterwards and talked a little bit more about people we might apologize to and details and whatnot. And I was reflecting on a good number of people who in my mind's eye, I'm like, wow, they're good people. They're quality people. They're,
Yeah.
they have integrity, and they attempted for years. They kind of were in the periphery of my life, sort of attempting to be my friend. And as you say this to me now, Suze, I'm just like, oh my gosh. I was so wrapped up in other stuff, other things I needed to learn, obviously, to grow as a human being. But I was so wrapped up in other stuff and work, as we've talked about before.
Yep.
Work. And
Yes.
always like people will come later. And I just want to acknowledge I'm feeling a little bit of pain.
Well, listen, here's the good news.
Mhm.
You're still breathing. And I think for the most part, those high quality people are still breathing. And you get to learn from this spark.
I could make some phone calls like Kyle did.
Like my boy Kyle.
That's right. Okay, I'm in it. I'm totally with you. I'm tracking and I'm learning. Thank you,
Okay,
Susan.
so yes, hang in there. It's worth it. It's also worth mentioning, this is a concept that I have known consciously for quite a few years now. But I think the first time that I bumped into this concept was via a PBS documentary series entitled This Emotional Life, which I highly recommend. That's another spark for another day, but that is a great series.
And Suze, you talked about this when you did a spark on the book, The Art of Dying Well.
Oh, did I now?
Now, it was in terms of like later in your life, make sure you have these strong relationships, right? And that's going to help you live longer and do better. Yeah.
Yep.
So anyway, you introduced that concept to me at that time, and I've never forgotten that.
Yeah. We'll touch on that a little bit as well.
Awesome.
So there's another little spark for your spark file, This Emotional Life. I think it's now available on Amazon Prime. I've chased that through the years to find it on different platforms because I go back to it. It's very good. But the whole series, spoiler, concludes with them saying what we've learned is the secret to happiness. Strong relationships are what make for a happy life. So back to the New York Times. Back to Jancy Dunn. Jancy goes on and writes, the Harvard study is far from the only one to have found a link between our relationships and our happiness. Ample research shows that people who are more socially connected live longer and are more protected against stress, depression, and declines in memory and language. Loneliness, on the other hand, damages our physical health. Surgeon General Vivek Murthy says, I believe loneliness is one of the defining public health concerns of our time. While the pandemic exacerbated loneliness, he added, it also helped many people take stock of their lives and reflect more deeply on how important their relationships are. That means taking steps in our day-to-day lives to invest in them. Jancy writes, it's not just your bonds with friends and family that are crucial to your happiness. It's your relationships with romantic partners and community groups. It's the friendly conversation with your mail carrier or the acquaintance you see at the dog run.
Yes.
So that is what the New York Times 7-Day Happiness Challenge centers on, strengthening social connections in order to boost happiness, which I think in and of itself is very interesting. And day one kicks it off strong with a 13-question quiz designed in partnership with Dr. Robert Waldinger, that professor of psychiatry at Harvard Medical School.
Mm-hmm.
The quiz is very quick, and it's a very simple assessment of the strength of your social connections. And it has questions like, how many people could you call in the middle of the night if you needed help?
Oof.
Think about it, Cams.
Mm-hmm. Well, it would kind of depend on what I needed help with, because proximity, like, do they need to be someone, close by, or could they be further away? But in general,
Who could you wake up? Who could you wake up if
Yeah.
you needed to?
1, 2, 3. I mean, there might be a few others, but they might be real curious. Like, what the hell?
Uh-huh.
You know what I mean? It might be
Yeah.
a bit out of the blue, but yeah.
I know we haven't talked in a minute. First, tell me how you're doing.
Well, I'm realizing, Susan, I don't want to jump your spark, so you might get to this, you might not, but I'm realizing in recent years, and by recent, I mean probably a decade, I've prided myself on being someone who doesn't really need, like, I don't call people with emotional problems so much anymore.
Uh-huh.
You know what I mean? Like, all that drama that I used to, which probably did serve to bond me to certain people at a certain point in my life. But I don't have that now. Like, my life is so much steadier.
I agree with that, but I also think if you were experiencing, God forbid, chest pains in the middle of the night,
Yeah.
I can, on your
Yeah.
behalf,
Yeah.
I can count a lot of people that you could call.
That's funny, because as you said that, I'm like, oh, well, okay, I could call. Yeah, there's a few more people I could call.
Yeah,
Maybe 5
yeah.
people.
Okay, here's another one. Do you participate in any group activities, either in person or virtually?
Virtually, I do.
That's right.
The Spark File.
High quality.
I mean, the relationships that we have in the Spark File are extraordinary and are fast becoming the strongest relationships in my life.
Yeah, they're fun and they're deep.
They're fun and they're
which
deep.
is the best combo.
Absolutely.
Here's another one. When was the last time you said yes when someone initiated a social plan with you?
Like
Today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not even
Come
been
on.
24 hours. Yes.
There you go. You're doing great. So
Thank you.
Jancy stresses in her reporting things like there is no right number of friends. It's the quality of your relationships, not the
Mhm.
quantity. So you want to try to discern what is most fulfilling to you. These are all her words. I just want to stress.
Yeah.
She says, you don't need to be an extrovert to improve your social fitness. She writes that, exactly. She writes that while adult friendships require effort, happiness is not out of reach for you if you are shy or introverted. You can engage with others in quieter settings around things that you care about. She says, try small controlled activities such as a knitting group, a computer programming class, hiking. I'll add a creativity coaching group like the Spark File.
I mean,
Jancy didn't write that.
yes.
I did that. But yeah, I mean, that makes sense to me though, because, gravitate towards things you care about. It doesn't have to be like day drinking or SantaCon. It can be something that is quieter or smaller groups.
Can I tell you a little something that has
Yes.
delighted me recently? So Wes used to play on the Broadway League softball league.
Sure.
And I did too, like way, way, way back in the day. I think I did it for a year or two, but until, work.
Mhm,
I can't
mhm.
leave in the middle of the day for a softball game,
Right.
that kind of thing. But Wes played it for years. And then when we returned to New York, he was going to be on the team, but at a certain age, and if you're a performer, you do worry about like, well, shit, I don't want to injure myself sliding into home
Yeah.
and then I can't do the show. That's not going to be good. So he started to have just a little bit of reservation about that. And then recently he was told about the Broadway Bowling League and that Blue Man Group was going to have a Broadway bowling team. Guess who's on it? Wesley Day. And he went to it last night. And it's late on a Thursday night because it has to be after the show.
Yeah,
So it
yeah.
starts at like 11:30. And if you know Wes Day, he's usually asleep hours before 11:30.
Did he
But
bowl
he
till the sun
did
came
it.
up?
He bowled for a couple hours and he told me about it today. It sounded like so much fun. And he was like, babe, it's real casual. So like if you come, you could bowl. And I was like, really?
Oh,
Really?
yeah.
Because that sounds delightful. And there are people there who've been doing it for 20 years.
Ah,
They're all Broadway people working
yeah.
backstage, and they're like, I did this show with them, and I did this show with them, and we've been bowling for for 30 years, and it just sounds so delightful. And it just reminds me of what you just said, something that feels easy, relaxed, no pressure, because you know what it takes to coax me out of the house, and especially that hour of night.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm just delighting in this because I feel like I haven't done it yet, but on behalf of West Day, like he's out there doing something fun and forging relationships.
I love that. And I want to share this next thing that Jancy says to speak to that feeling that you just had.
Uh-huh.
It's never too late.
Oh.
It's never too late. Jancy cites this story about a lonely 68-year-old who joined a gym after he'd retired. 3 months later, he had amassed more friends than he'd ever had in his life.
Wow.
So there's hope for all of us, is what we're trying to say.
Yay.
I was happy to see that when I took the quiz,
Yeah.
my social connections were stronger than I had anticipated, especially for an introvert who lives like a hermit on the side of a mountain and works from home.
Yeah, but what you do virtually.
Uh-huh.
And Suze, you inspire me all the time. Like, you're meticulous with your relationships, but you also tend to them like little plants.
God, I feel like I fail at this.
Oh gosh, not what I spy with my little eye. You seem on top of it.
You're kind. I feel like I could do better. And this is inspiring me to do better, not only for the relationships, but for my own happiness. To refer back to something that you just mentioned, something that we discussed in the Spark that I did about the art of dying well, something that I need to keep an eye on is I just need to make sure that my social connections don't shrink as I age.
Uh-huh.
Because I think it can happen so easily and kind of organically. And you really have to, like you were saying, tend it like little plants. You have to tend.
Mm-hmm.
So that last question, when was the last time you said yes when someone initiated a social plan with you? I read that and I was like, eek.
You have one tomorrow. You have a social plan.
That's right.
Ah!
So, as I just said, as an introvert living on the side of a mountain, I was like, who is going to initiate a social plan with me when by design I live a pretty solitudinal life, if you will? But then out of the blue, I get the nicest email from a friend of a friend of a friend. I've never met them before, who happens to live near me, inviting me on a friend blind date. I could not believe it when I got this email.
So awesome.
And I've got to tell you, like, I was excited, but also nervous. And I actually texted one of our mutuals to make sure that the person who emailed me is as awesome as they seemed. And I got a glowing endorsement.
Amazing.
So I was like, yes. And we're going to meet each other for the first time tomorrow.
Yes.
So it turns out you actually can connect with people no matter how introverted you are,
Yep.
how remotely you live. Like, you can actually connect with people.
Yes. And part of that, Suze, if I understand how it all rolled out, part of it is because you went to an event that engaged people, like intergenerational people.
I did. I went to an event, a Generations Over Dinner event, which is curated conversations, and you sit at tables with, approximately 8 people from different generations.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just beautifully hosted and beautifully curated and moderated. And I sent a thank you video back to the hosts of this evening. And what I didn't know is that, and I said all the things I just said to you about how wonderful it was, and how I felt like I had lived on the side of a mountain for 5 years, and in one evening I had met my people.
Exactly.
And I was so thankful for it. What I didn't
Yeah.
know is they forwarded that email to the people who had designed that dinner. And one of those people was the person who wrote back to me and said, I saw that video and I would love to be your friend, essentially.
So in a way, it was both you stepping out and saying yes to that event, and then this person stepping out and sending you a blind friend date request.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah. Yeah.
people want to connect, and I just want to give you a little credit too, because you went to a totally new event and were like, I'm here for this,
Yep.
and what you discovered was magical.
All of my dinner companions were people I met for the first time that night.
Mm.
And also, you and I had a conversation recently about how I did not learn as a young person to write thank you notes.
Uh-huh.
But what I try to do now is send thank you videos so people
Uh-huh.
can see my face and they can hear my voice.
Yes.
And boy, that paid off.
I'm delighted. I can't wait to hear how the date goes tomorrow.
Me too. I can't wait to tell you. I'm really excited. And I've been planning like, oh, what will my host give me? I'm going to take them a
Oh.
gift to thank them for reaching out and for hosting me. And I'm really, really excited. So I want to share a little sneaky peek of the other days in the challenge. So day 2 was the secret power of that 8-minute phone call,
Nice. As illustrated by Kyle.
as illustrated so beautifully by Kyle. Kyle, I fucking love you. Kyle is like, he's a full grown ass adult man.
Mm-hmm.
He holds this place in my heart, in addition to just being a great peer and friend and colleague and love.
Yes.
But he's like the little brother that I never had.
Right.
I just love him so much. So, an observation that I had about this phone call, it had been so effective when Kyle had reached out to me. And I was really, really apprehensive to reach out to someone else. And I feared that offering someone an 8-minute phone call would feel like I was like stingy.
Oh, right.
Even though I had such a wonderful experience with Kyle.
Right. With some people, it could read like, I want to remain connected. I've got 8 minutes for it. So let's connect real quick. And then I got to go.
Yeah. So, but I pushed through my fear and I
Yeah.
reached out to one of my besties, Hunter Bell.
Oh,
Hunter Bell, also like a brother to me. Hunter and I lived together during the pandemic, but we've both been so busy lately and I've been missing him. So I
mhm.
sent him a text that is templated in the New York Times. It has a link. They could not make it easier. It's
Yeah.
a link to that article about the 8-minute phone call. And it reads, "Hi, I read this in the New York Times and it made me think of you. Want to schedule an 8-minute phone call this week?" And he hearted it. And he totally texted back and was like, "I love this." And I was like, "What are you doing right now?" And we jumped on the phone right then and there. And again, 17 minutes. I checked the records. Again, 17 deep, wonderful minutes.
So these 8-minute calls technically take 17. Just schedule that. But that's very specific and on point.
Was worth it. But right in the middle of the workday, right in the
Awesome.
middle of the workday,
So
it was great.
awesome.
It was so good.
Oh.
So there's that tool.
I love that.
Day 3's challenge is to chat up someone you don't know. Or they put it this way, seek out and notice opportunities for friendly moments of uplift. Now, this is a sweet spot of mine. Even I'm an introvert and I don't always have the opportunity, but I make a practice of this in my life when I'm out, when I'm running errands, when I'm at the bank, when I'm at stores, etc. I will do that, just kindness. And we put this in the Voxer thread in the SparkFile community recently in response to a question that someone had about it. I shared it, so I want to share it with you here. I'm going to name drop. Please enjoy this. My friend Christian Borle, Broadway's Christian Borle, taught me this habit a while back that I love. He offers one additional kindness to each person he engages with. Colleagues, servers at restaurants, people who are panhandling. In any interaction where it makes sense, he offers one additional kindness, and he does it consciously. It's a habit that he has cultivated in himself. And that could be a compliment or a thank you or just a kind exchange of small talk or making somebody laugh because he's very, very funny, or a generous tip, whatever feels organic to the situation. And then years later, I read in the Nagoski's book about burnout that this type of interaction will definitely benefit your nervous system and the nervous system of the person you're interacting with, because it provides a little piece of evidence that the world is safe. The world is safe. So I was all for this. I'm like, I'm here for the day 3 challenge. And that I feel like I do pretty readily already.
Yeah. I feel like I really try to live that way too. I told you about the silver fox at the gym.
Yes.
Yeah.
Tell the people.
Okay. I'll tell the people. So I have been working out with a trainer at the gym, and first of all, my trainer is delightful and I enjoy it. And he's a dancer and he sings. And so we're always the ones like having a great time laughing. And he's working me out hard too, but he'll be like, "Oh my gosh, you like this." And I'm like, "I don't, it doesn't feel good." But he's like, "But that smile." And I'm like, "I know, it's how I cope." And I'm like, "It hurts, but we're doing it and it's fun."
I love that for you.
It's so awesome. And I know like it's all like my dad, and the way my dad just taught me how to be in the world. And when you're being challenged, you're like, "Isn't this great? What a challenge. How fun. Let's do it." And so at the gym, I was doing something and, laughing about it, I'm sure. And this lovely man, I told Susie he was a silver fox. He was like 6'3", completely built. Like he obviously spent a lot of time in the gym, and full head of silver hair, and just kind. He just had a really kind and beautiful face. Anyway, he stepped over to me, and he read this article, because he stepped over to me and was like, "Look at you! You are the only person you're having a great time. You're smiling. Like you've got the whole this is." I'm sure I made it about my trainer. I was like, "That's because I'm training with Chris and he's great."
Yeah.
But it was such a kind gesture in a place where when I look around, no one is smiling. No one is making eye contact with each other. No one is acknowledging, "Hey, you're working out. I'm working out. We're both using the same machine and we're taking turns, but we're not speaking to each other. We're just going to, look at the floor and trade turns." And it's such an interesting place to be. And so when someone steps out of that pattern, like that guy, I told Wes all about it too, so nobody be concerned. I told him about the silver fox. It really means a lot.
Yeah.
It just means a lot of like, wow, I just had a human interaction with a person, with a stranger.
It brightens your day. It does increase your happiness level during the course of the day.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that you're having that experience at the gym with your trainer.
Yeah.
And I love that somebody noticed and connected with you on it. It's one of the reasons, I think it's one of the secrets of the success of the gym where I go, because you can be an introvert, and whether you walk into the space physically or virtually, it's like Norm at Cheers. There's just sort of like,
yes,
Norm, Susan,
yes. Mark Fisher Fitness. Yeah.
And you don't have to be best friends, but you feel safe.
You feel safe. You feel welcome. You feel like you belong. And that sense of belonging is big. And I think that part of saying hello to people or complimenting them or recognizing them, like that gives people a sense of belonging.
Yeah.
That's good. Okay. What was that, day 4?
Oh, no, that was day 3. So day 4 challenge is fun. I'm going to come back to that in a second. Day 5 is about the importance of work friends. And I count myself very lucky in this regard.
Yep.
Between our little team at the Spark File and our community of clients and alum, I feel like this is as you were saying, Laura, a major source of happiness and meaningful daily engagement for me.
Yes.
And I also have elements of this with my little online workout community at Mark Fisher Fitness.
Yes.
We see each other every morning. We do a little name game. We hear about status updates from people's lives.
Yes.
Kyle, who reached out that day on the phone, is a great example of a work friend who made my life bearable at a really challenging job. And in the New York Times article, Jancy Dunn reports that a 2022 report from Gallup showed that people who have a best friend at work are more engaged than those who do not. They are also more likely to innovate and share ideas, get more work done in less time, and report having more fun. Friendships with colleagues are also aspects of our work lives that we have some control over. They have the potential to improve our daily experience immediately, no matter what we do for a living. And I think this also applies to creative work.
Yeah.
For example, just yesterday, we were in a session of our Illume Mastermind, which is our advanced year-long creativity course. And one of our great clients, Chris Pappas, he's about to release a great podcast. Chris Pappas just shared this huge update on several of his creative projects. And then he said, anytime I step into this group, unprompted, Chris said, anytime I step into this group, a layer of fear and worry melts away, and the jitters of sharing new work is there, but not the fear of rejection.
Oh.
And in addition to just taking in this nice compliment, I also thought, this is where I work.
This is where you work.
This kind of creative and personal self-expression and kindness and meaningful connection and regard for fellow humans it's happening where I work, and I fucking love these people.
And I fucking love these people.
Yeah. So
this environment.
So it's really important to have those healthy, fun relationships at work.
It is such a gift. And I think it's also a reminder, like, we are privileged in that we get to create the environment that we want. And then in doing so have magnetized these like-minded people together. And some listeners might be like, well, that sounds great, but that's not, in my environment, it's this. But I think about that and I think so if you do have a work friend, take that time to cultivate that friendship. There have been times in my life where I have put the company ahead of the people that I have been close to. And it's so good to have a reminder that what's going to stay with you after this job are the friendships and the human beings.
Yeah.
So tend to those relationships, even as you tend to your work.
Yeah.
Tend to those relationships too.
Yeah.
And then also just a tip from Susan and I, because we've both done it our whole life. If there's people that you really love and you want to spend more time with them, create ways to work with them.
Absolutely. It's the best.
The best.
Okay. Day 6, put a social plan on the calendar and keep it. Check. I'm doing it. Not without some social anxiety, I have to admit, but I know that once I get past the first few minutes, I'm going to have a great time.
Yep.
And I also know I may require a little time for myself the next day. In fact, we had been invited to another social event the following day, and I was like, I think that might be too much for me.
Good for
2
you.
social events in 2 days. Post-pandemic me doesn't have the social stamina that I once had. And so I'm just trying to balance that. I also need rest, and I don't want to recreate the life I had before where I'm just always running and socializing.
Suze, that's wise. Good job. Good job.
It was hard. It was hard to say no, but I think it feels good. So day 7's happiness challenge was to keep the happiness going all year long. And specifically, it challenged folks to set specific relationship goals. For instance, it asks, could you do one small thing a few times a week to promote connections, like send one text or email someone to say hello? Could your goal be to get together with a friend once each week? And they encourage folks to start small and level up as time allows. Day 7 also challenges us to commit to consistency, which they acknowledge is tough. And Jancy Dunn writes in that 7-day challenge, I am haunted by a data point Dr. Waldinger mentioned. Over and over throughout the lives of participants in the Harvard study of adult development, he saw friendships deteriorate because of neglect. Being purposeful about investing time and energy in your relationships is critical for your well-being. Dr. Waldinger said, the frequency and the quality of contact with other people are 2 major predictors of happiness. Did we mention the frequency and the quality of contact with other people are 2 major predictors of happiness? So,
Suze, this is good stuff.
Well, here's some real good stuff. Back to the day 4 challenge. Day 4 challenge is thank someone special. Jancy Dunn writes, consider what you would thank this person for if you thought you would never see them again. Take a few minutes and write down what you would tell them with as many specific examples as possible. Don't overthink it. It can be both dashed off and straight from the heart. Think of it as a eulogy for the living. Then send it by email, text, handwritten note, whatever. The medium doesn't matter. Sending it does. She says the happiest people take time to explicitly cherish the people they love. Research has shown that writing a note of appreciation to someone has an immediate positive impact on feelings of well-being and connectedness for both you and the recipient. So here goes 10 specific ways I'm grateful to you and or things I love about you, Laura Camion.
Susan.
You just have to sit there and take it.
Oh.
You just have to sit there, open your little heart and take it.
I'm uncomfortable and I'm going to cry.
Number 1, I am grateful to have you as a business partner. To work alongside someone who I am so compatible with is a gift. Your dedication to our business, the care with which you tend to our work and our clients, I am grateful for that every single day, even on days when I'm cranky and I can't remember to tell you. Number 2, I am grateful to have you as a friend. It blows my mind that I can work with you all day and still stay on the phone with you for hours and have things to talk to you about. It is amazing to me. Plus, you see me every day, which is to say, you see me at my lowest and you don't run for the hills. Number 3, I am grateful that you are committed to cleaning as we go. We clean up conflict as we go, and I am learning slowly that I don't have to fear conflict because I have a growing body of evidence that we can process conflict and hard things, and you will not flee. Number 4, I am grateful for your thoughtful gifts. You really listen and you pay attention, and then shablam, the gifts that you give are fucking great. Number 5, I am grateful for your continued encouragement. You encourage me continually to tend to rest and restocking and to balancing our work with our lives. And I'm grateful for you that you continue to encourage that even when we have a fuck ton of stuff to do. Number 6, I am grateful for your healthy brain and body. I am grateful that you take care of yourself because I really want you to be around for as long as possible. Number 7, I am grateful for the ways that you incorporate your learning into our business and our friendship. You learn as you go, and when you know better, you do better, and I'm so grateful for it. Number 8, I really love your personal taste. I think you have really great personal taste in home decor, just taste all around. I really think you have great taste. Number 9, I love the way you treat children. You are so good with kids. You're so good with kids, and you're kind to my dog, Kitty, even though she is a nut who wants to chew on your hand, and that you would not choose that. But you are kind to her, and you are kind to children, and you are kind to servers. And I think it is a real indicator of your character. Number 10, I love your sensitive soul and your highly sensitive, empathic nature. And number 11, I'm going over. Number 11, you have changed my life over and over and over again for the better at really critical junctures. When you are in my life is better. And it's because of all the aforementioned, but also because you actively seek and contribute to major creative initiatives and take me along for the ride or partner with me. And your presence in my life has absolutely changed it for the better. And number 11, no, we're up to 12. Number 12, I want to thank you for letting me do my day 4 challenge right here on this podcast and for rolling with it like a real champ.
You son of a bitch. I did not have a choice. Oh, Susie Blackwell.
I did it without total consent.
I love you so much. Thank you. That was difficult to just sit and listen to and take in. And I I appreciate it so much. I mean, thank you for making me work through the discomfort of hearing kind things and just having to take it.
I didn't even mention Wes. Thank you for being partnered to somebody who is healthy and creative and awesome. Because can you imagine if like we had this life together and I was like, oh,
that guy.
fucking Wes. But no, Wes is awesome
It's West
too.
Day. It's West fucking Day. Thank you for your love of West Day too. I mean, truly, just note to anyone who's thinking of, you know, collaborations and partnerships. Like your partners are part of the partnership.
Your partners are part of the partnership.
You know, they didn't choose it.
That's
and
right.
Thankfully, Nathan and Wes are both just phenomenal human beings. Suze, I'm going to get you back when you least expect it with a list of things, and you're going to have to sit and take it.
I'll take it.
I love you.
So what do we make of all of I love you too. What do we make of all of this, baby cams? Well, first we make baby cams cry. That's the first thing we make of it. We make time to tend to our relationships and our collaborations. They are precious. They are precious. And selfishly, they are the keys to our happiness.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a list of people I love who I want to reach back to, reconnect with them, and let them know how precious they are to me. So that's one thing that I'm going to make of this.
Yeah.
And I think you observe this, Laura. I have a practice in place. I really do believe if something is rising up in you, something positive, and the person is standing right in front of you, take the opportunity to say it.
Oh, yeah.
Because you do not know if you will get the chance to say it in the future.
That's right.
So I will stop in the middle of meetings and say, just in case I get hit by a bus, I want to have said this to you.
That's right. And never assuming that person knows. They go, oh no, they know I love them. Like, go ahead and say it then. Go ahead and remind them.
Say it again. Let them know you love them again.
Yeah.
I told this story on this podcast, I believe, about having taken the moment to say what I meant to say to a dear friend, and then they were gone. They weren't on the planet anymore. And ever since then, I'm like, if something's rising up in me, I will stop. I will say it. That's another thing I make of this. What else do we make of this? We make connections. Mm-hmm. This is Jancy Dunn's writing again. A good way to build ties is by joining a group that meets regularly. Researchers call that regular proximity with other humans propinquity. And it has shown that the more propinquity we have, the greater the chance that we'll form friendships. So I think this must be why I consistently feel so uplifted from being around our SparkFile community a couple times a week.
Yes. Amen.
And I felt that way through the whole pandemic. Yeah.
Yes. That loneliness that we knew people were experiencing, we had an awareness of like, oh gosh, I don't think we're experiencing that because we are meeting on a regular basis.
And we also had the great good fortune of living with people we really liked at the time too.
That is true too.
So we had physical contact, etc., which not everyone did.
That is true.
So, but you could also form all sorts of groups around your brand of creativity.
Yeah.
I was daydreaming this morning about having another live crafting bee.
Oh yeah.
I really would like to do that, like we had at the SparkFile retreat at Saunders Farm.
Yes.
I have so many ideas. Something is awakening in me. I have so many ideas about ways that I want to bring awesome people together.
Oh, yes.
So,
yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I just want to thank Dr. Bob Waldinger or Waldinger. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. And Jancy Dunn and the team that produced this at the New York Times. It is just a gorgeous challenge. I was challenged by it and I feel better for it. And you made Laura cry. Are you happy? Happy New York Times?
And you made me cry. But I think we're all the better for it, Susan. What a beautiful spark. What a beautiful spark that everyone can get something from. My gosh. Wow.
There's no right amount of friends. It's never too late.
Reach out.
Get in there. Reach out. Reach out.
Oh.
So that's it. That's it.
Susan, what a good spark.
Oh, Cami, and settle down over there.
I can't.
She's got her head resting in her hands.
I can't. You did me in.
This episode of the Spark File was made on the lands of the Lenape people. And as always, we hope that this put another bunch of sparks in your file. If there is a spark you'd like us to explore, or if you'd like to learn more about how to coach with us to bring your creative ideas to life, you can email us at thesparkfile@gmail.com or submit it through our website, thesparkfile.com.
We will even happily take your feedback, but you know the price of admission. First, we need you to share a creative risk that you have taken recently.
Follow us on social at The Spark File, and be sure to subscribe, rate, and 5-star review this podcast. It really does help other listeners to find us. Also, if you like this podcast, we hope you'll share it with the people that you love. And if you didn't like it, call one of your friends, complain to them about it, take it up with them, connect over it, bond over it.
Bond over it. That's what I was going to say. You can totally make a connection out of it. If something lights you up and gets your creative sparks flying, we are writing you a forever permission slip to make that thing. Make that thing that's been knocking at your door. It's your turn to take a spark and fan it into a flame.
You know, you got to take it
and make it.
Bye, friends.
Bye, everybody.
I love you, Laura Camion.
I love you, Susie Q.
When I bump into something that inspires me, I dump it in my spark file. Could be something that I want to make or how I want to be. I pump it in my spark file. I jump into my spark file. Let's open up the spark file.
Hi, friends. Susan Blackwell from the Spark File here to let you know that the doors are open for the Spark File Illume, a 9-month group creativity coaching mastermind that invites you to be the chief creative officer and chief marketing officer of your creativity. But what does that mean? That means in 9 months in Illume, you will clarify and advance your big creative goals and learn how to effectively share your work with the world. Now, if you're listening to this and you're an experienced creative or an accomplished professional who seeks a space where it is safe to attempt something you've never tried before, or complete a big creative project, or take your work to the next level and acquire the skills needed to share your creative work with the world, Illume might be right for you. We are calling in emotionally intelligent, high-functioning creatives who are ready to level up. You can find out more by going to thesparkfile.com/Illume, but do it now to find out if Illume is right for you and to save with early bird discounts. That's thesparkfile.com/Illume. Take a leap, take a risk. Go to thesparkfile.com/Illume and join us for Illume.